This is Freddie Spaneth and his aircraft. Oh yes, Freddie took a military boy for a ride. He was home on vacation. That's Lieutenant Nyhart, Wayne Showers, Mr. Richardson of the English Department of Pennsylvania State College. The other gentleman was with the faculty, and I've forgotten his name. Charlie had been overseas, went through the English flight school. He got the wings in the American flight school and went to England and went to their school. And of course, he's wearing the English wings also. He's telling the boys a little bit about flight operations in England. This is Charlie Neidhart coming in with his father, Amos. They were out on a trip someplace over Pennsylvania. The terrain was pretty rough that they were flying over. Baker's on the welcome committee, so he's going to shake Charlie's hand for surviving the Allegheny Mountains. Now they're going to look at the map, show Bob where they'd been. He's going to say it's bad territory. Here's Robert getting the girls and all the students to help get the Texas soot off of the airplane. It's Jerry Hartman on the left, Dr. Carnahan of the chemistry department, back of Bobby Baker, polishing up the prop there, putting on the show for the photographer. This is Glenn Shear checking on his airplane that he has to keep clean and polished up. He appreciates the big help. It's George the dog with a bone. Aircraft circling the pine tree at Boalsburg. I've been up doing maneuvers and stalls. Obviously coming downwind to land to the east. Oh, this happens to be a flyby. This is Wayne Showers returning to the field with a flight student. They will now discuss some of the maneuvers that they were doing and making records of their training program. This is Lutz with one of the rocket chiefs, the windshield partially closed, that we used to fly Baker back to LaGuardia Field in New York, where his C-54 was awaiting his return to go to Europe. And this is how not to fly when you're flying instruments. I used to ride with Baker flying this ship from Boalsburg Air Depot to LaGuardia Field, take Baker back to flight operations. Putting on a show for the boys and girls. Taxiing back to flight operations. Bobby Baker gives me a new propeller for my airplane after the annex. Fortunately, I didn't need it. This is a family that brought some children out for an aircraft ride. They had gone up previous to this particular flight, but they had their children go up in the air, get the experience of first aircraft ride. I do not remember their names. I wish I did. Little girls, I'm sure, are still around. This is an air view of Old Main again on the campus of State College. Air view of Old Main again. This is Glow Wild, one of the flight students, checking the aircraft and also to check the gasoline before she goes out on a training flight. This is Glow's roommate. She wanted to fly, but her parents would not allow her to fly at that particular time. This is June Jones in the training program. She's getting ready to go on cross country. She has to learn how to crank the aircraft before she goes solo cross country. This is one of the boys in the military. Two of the girls that worked at the corner room at State College. Two military officers. I do not remember their name. This is Art Beyer, Al Reeser. Al Reeser became chief pilot for American. He was a vice president, served as a vice president. He's retired now, about 6-8 years from American. Art Beyer had been with the FAA, and he's retired also. Here's June back off her cross country, and she's crying. And I do not know what the story was, and she lost her famous fountain pen back in the aircraft. I told the boys to stand the airplane up on its nose and bump the bottom of the ship, and the pen would possibly come forward, which it did. She was quite happy to retrieve her fountain pen. Here's a piece of equipment was brought in. The first piece of equipment arrived at the air depot at State College. When I built the air depot at State College, I'm crawling up on the piece of equipment. A co-ed arrived, was wondering what was going on up there at that particular spot, and asked a lot of questions. And Bill Keeler on the left. Bill was much interested in the air depot development of State College. He was a big help for Lutz and his adventure. This is a carry-all at the air depot working in the east runway. This is the old railroad bed being pushed aside, running from State College to Pine Grove Mills. There's the carry-all working on the east runway, the air depot at State College. This is still the old railroad bed, clearing it away so the dirt can be pushed aside for grading. That's Bill Keeler up there on the old railroad bed. He paid us a lot of visits. He loved to observe the equipment working. Grading equipment, the power of a bulldozer. Bill had been in World War I. This is a fairly small bulldozer here. Had to do a lot of jabbing at the old railroad bed. A little rough on the operator, too. This is the carry-all on the east runway at State College. This is Robert Menschel, Civil Engineering Department, State College, was the chief engineer of the air depot in State College. He's out there with the contractor discussing the progress at the airfield. Carry-all has a load that particular time. Take it off of one spot and put it on another spot. Level up the runway. Carry-all again, scraping off a few inches of dirt, carrying it to a lower spot. This is John Truby of the First National Bank in State College. He frequented the place to observe the machinery working and grading. But he was also concerned, how are we going to pay for it? Where the dollars are going to come from? That's the superintendent for the construction company, and John Truby and Bill Keeler. Bill's going to give $1 to remind me of where the dollars come from to pay for such operations. This view taken from the west end of the runway to the east end before grading started. John's still concerned about the money matters, where the dollars are going to come from to pay for it. This is John Truby and Bill Keeler going up to the old farmhouse and around the buildings. There was 22 small buildings that were not worth salvaging, so we got a bulldozer and pushed them on a pile and put a match to them. This is the area that hadn't been touched yet as far as grading was concerned. This is the area that had not been touched. Taking a picture of what we had to do yet. This shows a picture of the runway to the east. Some work had been done here, but it wasn't yet leveled to the degree to meet specifications. Now here we are where a square yard costs a lot of money, and it also costs a lot on the equipment to handle such a stony condition. Just on a couple of places we had rock to contend with. Fortunately, very difficult for the equipment. Repair costs were tremendous. Here I have a carryall biting into the rock also. A big old tractor up ahead tearing it apart. A lot of repairs to be made every day. Here's the bulldozer again working on a rock that was giving him a lot of trouble to get out of the area. This is at the west side, west end of the runway, near the road going from State College to Pine Grove Mills. Carryall cutting the dirt in the west end of the runway. Here's the guy in the bulldozer getting a rough ride up over the rock, shoving a rock off to the side. He was looking for dirt. Mr. Mitchell again, along with the superintendent of the operations. There's Mr. Mitchell, the chief engineer, checking on operations. Thought they were approaching the right level at that particular spot, so they're making some measurements. Give the bulldozer operator some information, how much of a cut had to come out. Hartford Brothers of Emporium, Pennsylvania were the contractors doing the job. This is the east end of runway 22. We had an 8-foot cut here. I had to remove a little hill on the east end of runway 22. Fortunately, didn't have much rock to contend with. The earth carrier there had little resistance. They could scoop it out pretty freely. A helicopter departing at the air depot at State College. And here's George, our mascot. This is a view in Flight Operations Office, which was the old farmhouse at that time. Flight plan on the wall there showed the various runways. We had 3 different runways, land 6 different directions. There's George the dog investigating his emporium. Every morning that was his routine. This is near an old ore pit to the west of the farmhouse. Which is now filled up. This is the airline's operations office, the radio, the teletype. This picture was taken, I believe, after they ceased operations at the air depot in State College. Well, we know what time it is. I don't remember the date. Oh, here comes a calendar. April 1950. 2 days, 2 ways. 2 flights to Pittsburgh, 2 flights to New York every day. This is the hangar after they were completed. This is the gas tank system. American Airways. All American Airways, I should say. Here comes an airliner in. Some photographers going out. Oh, this is the first flight, the first scheduled flight to the air depot at State College. All American Airways. Dave Kimmel, the pilot of this particular ship. A lot of people departing. This is Dave Miller of All American Airways, Secretary of All American Airways, Dr. George Haller, Mrs. Keeler, and myself standing at the baggage door. This is Al Yoga with the welcome key. Welcome to State College. Dr. John L. Holmes, now standing in the doorway. He was on the ground there for a moment. Now we have the Drum and Bugle Corps giving us some ditties. That's John Holmes in the doorway of the ship again. Ship is departing. In a few minutes, we'll have another ship arriving from New York. This ship came from Pittsburgh. It's Mr. Hayden of All American Airways, a ticket officer. Shows a group of the people that came out the first day of flight operations, the passenger run, the air depot in State College. Old cars and wagons. Charlie Neihart up on top of the roof of the hangar. This is my mother and brother and myself in the picture. Here comes the airliner from New York. I do not remember the pilot's name that made that flight. All American Airways. This was before any blacktop was laid around the hangars or on the taxi strips. Ship taking off to the east. Air Force DC-3s. 2 DC-3s. They gave the ROTC students 1 hour of familiarization flights in an aircraft, encouraging them to join the military, especially the Air Force. They had 2 DC-3s and 2 twin beaches at various times at the airfield on orientation operation. Another All-American flight arriving. A lot of students from college. This must be an evening flight to Pittsburgh. It was always loaded. A lot of times they removed the baggage to make more space and weight problems to go from here to Pittsburgh. The girls would come out on standby for a seat, and when the ship would land, they would rush to the door to get in to get a seat to go to Pittsburgh for the weekend. I guess they still do that too. Here they are again, ready to go back to Pittsburgh. Liner arriving, the evening flight to Pittsburgh. They're going to rush the door to try to get a seat before the people get out. Well, coats had a style back in that particular day. I believe most of this was 1948-49. Everybody's getting aboard. Whether they're going to stay, I do not know. I believe this to be John Graves of the Air Operations. He got a job with All-American after he graduated from Penn State. I think he's in Charleston, West Virginia at the present time with the U.S. Air now. They changed their name from All-American to U.S. Air. Here's a basketball team arriving in Pennsylvania State College. I do not